Well, good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. I'm House Republican Leader Tony McCombie, representative from the 89th District in Northwest Illinois. As we begin our first 2 weeks of veto session, I'm here with my Republican deputy leaders to share some of our priorities and what we would like to see accomplished and what policies should be addressed before we close out the 2023 legislative year. But before I dive into that, I would like to take a moment to express our support for Israel. Earlier this week, we learned that House Speaker Welch will not be calling forward any resolutions concerning the conflict. He noted that this is an international issue, and instead we should focus on our own state and what is happening in Illinois. Well, to say that, I would say to the Speaker that he has called several resolutions concerning international issues. This conflict is relevant to our state. The Speaker himself recently has taken a delegation to Israel, and Illinois residents were taken hostage by Hamas terrorists. We are a part of this. We should not stand silently when we see terror playing out in just months after our chamber welcomed the Consul General of Israel. I have filed House Resolution 446, which I will ask all members of our chamber to strongly condemn the violence in the Middle East and to stand with Israel as it defends itself against the heinous acts of violence carried out by Hamas terrorists, and to support and to express our unlimited, unwavering support for the families, defenders, and the Republic of Israel. Now, as we look ahead to this week, we must take action to fix a number of issues with our state government agencies, where we have seen continual cases of mismanagement and disarray, issues that have been ongoing and have continued to be left unaddressed. We must do our job. We must ensure that government services are rendered and that there is accountability and transparency. In DCFS, we are continually putting our children and workers at risk. IDF-PR, our caucus started conversation months ago with the department and the issues preventing people from getting to their jobs. DOC, the audit illustrating the lack of reporting sex offenders. IDS, the auditor's report found the state's weakened fraud controls, causing the state and taxpayers over $5.2 billion. HFS, my colleague Leader Hammond will discuss that in a little bit. The people we serve around the state in all 102 counties rely on state agencies for their well-being. We haven't seen in leadership, what we haven't seen in leadership from the Democratic leaders to address the missteps, and that includes the failure of the leaders to bring Republicans to the table or move any of our legislation forward that would bring solutions to the problems that we are seeing and hearing from our constituents and their constituents around the state. Beyond issues at state agencies, we have significant policies that need to be addressed this week and the second week. That would be SB 76, the administration's push to go green. We must have a pathway to provide reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy, and that is through nuclear power, so we must lift that moratorium. Tax reform. Families continue to deal with the rising cost of living in Illinois, and we must make finding tax relief a priority. Yet, we continue to hear conversations that they're going to be increasing our overall tax burden. Paid time off. Paid time off comes into effect January 1 of 2024. As it was written, there was many unintended, I would like to think, unintended consequences on that bill that we need to have addressed. And the sponsor of the bill said that there would be a trailer bill, so we need to have that over veto as well. There will be significant consequences for small businesses, not-for-profit organizations, and local governments across the board. Lastly, transparency in our closing fund clause. This fund has enabled the governor to close deals to bring businesses to the state, but there should be an openness and transparency within that. We talked about that during debate on the floor. All legislative leaders, and that includes Republicans, should be involved in that process. So I filed HB 4152 to amend that process. Now I'd like to introduce Leader Hammond.
Thank you, Leader McCombie. I am Noreen Hammond. I represent the 94th District in the state of Illinois on the, I would say, the west central part of the state, but that's changed quite a bit, so it runs from the Mississippi River to the Illinois River. I'm glad to be back in the Capitol, and I look forward to working with all of you and working on the issues that we're facing here in Illinois, not just today, but certainly in the months to come before us. One of the largest problems that we are facing right now, both from a budgetary and a humanitarian perspective, is the ongoing crisis at our southern border and the influx of migrants, undocumented immigrants into Illinois. The crisis at our southern border can no longer be ignored. In September alone, the U.S. Border Patrol apprehended more than 200,000 immigrants crossing the U.S. across the Mexican border unlawfully. Due to its status as a sanctuary city, more than 18,500 migrants have been transported to Chicago from the border states. The migrant crisis is likely to cost Chicago taxpayers $361 million. That's just in 2023. Meanwhile, the governor's office has said they expect the state to spend on migrant response a total of more than $400 million in FY23 and FY24. Earlier this year, we learned that the estimated cost of the Illinois healthcare benefits program for undocumented immigrants had ballooned to $1.1 billion. The House Republicans introduced House Resolution 220, and that called for a moratorium on the enrollment and the expansion of the benefits program, as well as an audit of the costs. Instead of taking action to reduce the costs of this massive taxpayer-funded program, our Democrat colleagues deferred it to the governor to manage it and manage the program. Just last week, the Illinois Department of Health Care and Family Services announced a temporary pause on new enrollees in the Health Benefits for Immigrant Seniors program, as the program hit an enrollment cap of 16,500 individuals. However, HFS has still not implemented copays and other cost-sharing measures, and it seems highly unlikely that the administration will be able to contain the costs at the $550 million that was budgeted for the program. The latest cost estimates from HFS show that those caps, combined with administrative delays in launching the copays and the co-insurance requirements for enrollees, have failed to control the program spending. An analysis done for HFS last month shows that the program is expected to cost $831 million in FY24. That's more than $280 million beyond the appropriated amount. That estimate was based on a total program of enrollment for 69,000 individuals. Illinois taxpayers cannot afford to pay for free health care benefits for undocumented immigrants, especially at a time when their own health care costs are skyrocketing. We again call for a moratorium on the enrollment and the expansion of this program. Furthermore, we must do more to stop the flow of undocumented immigrants into Illinois. The federal government needs to take action to secure our borders and make it clear to our neighbors to the south that the U.S. border is closed. Yesterday, we filed House Bill 4187 to repeal the Illinois Trust Act and end our status as a sanctuary state for undocumented immigrants. The Trust Act prohibits local law enforcement in Illinois from participating in immigration enforcement. Our legislation would allow law enforcement agencies to once again cooperate with the federal immigration authorities. The time has come to end Illinois' status as a sanctuary state. Now I would like to hand it over to my friend and Deputy Leader Brian Spain.
Well, thank you very much, Leader Hammond. It's good to be back in Springfield. We look forward to this return to Springfield. We haven't been in session as a legislature since May, and I think the theme of the day that we're talking about is the unfinished work of the Illinois General Assembly and the prioritization that needs to take place to get our state moving forward again. So earlier this morning, we took about 2 hours in the House Executive Committee with the Speaker himself presenting a bill. It's a bill on a very important topic, but its impact in terms of the number of people in the state of Illinois is very small. That's the only action that we have seen with a legislative committee so far leading up to an important veto session. The Rules Committee has been convened one time. The one bill that has been released was the Speaker's staff unionization proposal that we talked about this morning. So we're here to remind the Democratic leaders there is a lot of work left to be done in this veto session in front of the legislature. Let's talk about Invest in Kids. The cliff and scholarship cliff that is being imposed upon our children throughout the state of Illinois is finally here. We have kicked the can and kicked the can, and now it is time for action for the legislature. I certainly hope to step up and save this program. We have been successful in the state of Illinois of putting more and more funding into our public education over the last several years, hundreds of millions of dollars more that has been appropriated and delivered for public education. It's a really great thing. And then at the same time, we've given school choice opportunities to children who need it through a private scholarship program that now is under threat of closure by opponents and Democrats that are leading the way in the state of Illinois. We can't let that happen. It is absolutely essential that we preserve opportunities for our families in the state of Illinois. That's why we see so many people leaving the state of Illinois. They felt like their family was given no other choice, whether it's for education, whether it's for the cost of doing business, whether it's a feeling that they don't count and aren't mattered and aren't valued in terms of their representative democracy. So those things need to change, and we're here to work on them. House Republicans stand ready to work and to make a difference. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention one important thing. Since the last time we were here in May, we've had additional convictions in federal court as part of the Mike Madigan ComEd culture of corruption that has been dominated and led by Democrats in this state for decade after decade. And yet, have we had any hearing? We have a House committee. I serve as the ranking member of the Ethics and Elections Committee. We have had no hearings, considered no activities on the topic of ethics. We've talked about elections. We're doing nothing yet again on ethics. What is it going to take for the Democratic leaders in the state of Illinois to finally understand that the culture of corruption in place in our state needs to stop? Republicans stand here ready and willing to work together to deliver changes.